Hi everybody, TJ Mac Vintage Cards and Nostalgia here, and in today's video I'm going to talk some about card design and just some observations I have regarding it. But before I do that, I just want to give a shout out to Gannon, JGA59. He's a frequent commenter on my videos and other people's as well. And what I like about Gannon is he's very thought-provoking oftentimes in his comments. He's somebody who's very knowledgeable about card design and player history, card history. He knows a lot about magazines and other things as well. Just a very solid collector, I think. And I just appreciate the insights that he shares. And we oftentimes talk about those who create content and the influence they have on us, but somebody like Gannon really does influence me. There's others as well, but my video today in particular is based on a conversation that we had through the comments in one of my last videos regarding card design. So in the conversation, we talked some about the 55 Bowman set, which you can see here. I got two examples from my collection. George Kell with the White Sox, as you can see, and Al Kaline. One of the things that you can note about this set right from the start is the different colors used on the faux wood design. Simulates the TV sets of the day. Ones that I grew up with when a TV set was a piece of furniture in your room, not a flat screen that you hung on your wall. You actually could put knickknacks and different things on the top of your television sets. Grew up in a time when we didn't have remote controls. The child was usually the remote control that sat below your dad in the chair. He would say, turn it to channel 2 or 4 or 7 or whatever. So it takes you back to that time. But what's really neat about this set is that television was really starting to get put into a lot of families' homes, and baseball was getting put on television and sports in general on a fairly regular basis. So this was cutting edge for the time. And some already know this, but that's one of the things that I think connects a lot of people to the 55 Bowman set. And it's a beautiful design as well. And when you get certain photographs within the television design here, they really come at you. I like these two in particular, the Al Kaline with his batting stance, and you can see, looks like the lights behind him, and then you got George Kell with his feet underneath, or I'm sorry, his feet on top of some really green grass there, and he got the ball in his glove. Just two really nice looking examples from this set, in my opinion. And it's one that I'm getting more and more into as time goes by because I am a big fan of this set. Just picked up another card recently that I'm going to show on a future video, but I thought I would show these two today just to really highlight my appreciation for this design and my desire to get more of them into my collection. Just going to take a quick close-up of these two cards. Two beautiful mid-grade examples. It's pretty much right in my collecting wheelhouse. I just like cards that present well and really just tell a story to me or players that I connect to. Here's the Al Kaline. This would be a second-year Kaline. He had a Bowman and a Topps card that year. And one of the benefits that you have when you collect multiple sports is that you get a lot of insight into card design. And what people may not realize is that 1962 Topps was a great year of coming up with innovative type designs. We know the 55 Bowman was probably the first set that had a colored border, certainly on a nationally distributed level. I'm not as knowledgeable of regional issues, but 62 Topps is the first time that Topps put out colored bordered sets. The 54 Topps had the full bleed on the top only, and then you had 53 Topps, of course, which had the full bleed on the bottom. But an enclosed encased border, 62 Topps in its football, hockey, and baseball sets had a fully encased colored border. And this was a time in history where many of the sets had their own unique designs. There was a little copycatting going on back then, but in this year, for example, there are three very different looking designs. And you can see here on the 62 Topps, we've talked about the wood grain border on the Willie McCovey. You can just see how beautiful this card is. And then if I put next to it, you have also the Rocky Colavito, and it has the different color faux wood. I talked about this probably a video a month or so ago, but you can see there's little nuances to the design throughout the set. And this is one of my favorite sets, like I've talked about. I'm going to do a profile at some point. I have a lot of cards from this set because I just love it. And Colavito is one of those players that I've enjoyed collecting as of late. But this is a very distinctive design at the time. Similar in some ways to 55 Bowman, but Topps really stepped out this year by coming out with the fully colored encased border. And then now I'm going to show the football from that year. Now you have two legendary quarterbacks depicted here in Johnny Unitas and Bobby Lane. Now with the 62 Topps design, you got a fully encased black border. First time this has been used, and of course very condition sensitive. I have several cards from this set in mid-grade, typically grade 6. I have a couple grade 5s and some grade 7s, but this is a very condition and sensitive set. It's a good sweet spot for me because I think these cards present very well in a mid-grade form, and I love to display these cards because it is a beautiful set. Very underrated set in my opinion. It's not talked as much about as the 71 Topps baseball black borders. And here's a close-up of the Bobby Lane from the set. He wore number 22 as a quarterback, and you can see the nice action shot in the black and white to go along with the color photo. That's a posed image. And then here's the back of the card. Beautiful back as well with the cartoon in the center. Here's the back of the 62 baseball. I didn't show that. This is the back of the Colavito, as you can see. And similar color to the football from that year. Then you have the hockey, which used a very unique blue border. And it looks, I think it's very striking against the white background, which to me envisions ice. Of course, that's the surface that hockey's played on. You got the Stan Mikita. This would be his third-year card. And then you got Bert Olmsted in an airbrushed Rangers jersey. Doesn't have the insignia on the front. I don't believe he ever even played for the Rangers. I might be wrong on that. And then here's the back. These are a nice blue on the back. A little different shade than the front. Very sharp design, though. I'm a big fan of the hockey designs in general. I think a lot of them are so well done, and not ones you see as often in the hobby. The sets are very small for hockey, too. The 62 Topps set only featured the Blackhawks, Rangers, and Bruins, 3 of the original 6 teams that were playing at the time. And then the Parkhurst set had the Red Wings, Canadiens, and Toronto Maple Leafs. The Parkhurst would have been a lot more popular than the Topps just because those teams were better than the teams that Topps had in their set at the time, though the Blackhawks were a very good team. And in the set, there's 11 Hall of Fame cards. They're very small sets. I believe the 62 Topps is a 66 card set. I'm just going off the top of my head. It's either 50 or 66 cards, but they're very small sets comparatively to the other sports. Now, cards can also tell stories about what was happening at the time in their respective games, and not necessarily things that were happening on the field. These 2 cards in particular stand out to me. Not so much the players, although Gale Sayers was a reflection of the NFL at that time and Joe Namath of the AFL. But in the 1960s, there was an all-out war going on between the AFL and the NFL for viewership and for players. The AFL started in 1960 as competition to the NFL, and at first the NFL really didn't take them overly serious, but as the decade went on, the AFL became bigger and bigger and started really competing with the NFL, especially for players and television, as I mentioned. Now, the 66 Topps card is very interesting to me because it's similar to the Bowman design in that it's depicted on a television as part of the design with a player photo in the center. So you have the K line here, and you can see there's a similarity even to how the television's like framed in the interior shot there in the inset, and then you got the photo inside. Now, the AFL signed a contract with NBC in 1964, starting for the 65 season. They have broadcast rights, and NBC was going to color television in their formatting. So this card, I think, was very significant that was issued in 1966 in that it depicted the players on a television screen, which I think was a shot at the NFL, just my opinion, and saying, hey, we have our programs now being filmed, our games being filmed in color on NBC. And then the NFL, what I noticed is the rights to their cards were Philadelphia trading gum, and it was from 1964 to 1967 that Philadelphia produced the NFL cards. And then the AFL cards were produced by Fleer in 1962 and 63, and then Topps from 64 to 67. In 61, they had a joint set together, the NFL and AFL, and in 1960, the AFL was under Fleer as well. So you can see here on this 64 Philadelphia card, there's no NFL insignia on this Fran Tarkenton, but you can see it on the 67. You also see it here on the 66, the NFL insignia. And then you see it here as well on the 65 on the bottom on this Raymond Berry. I think this is the NFL starting to take the AFL seriously, so they wanted to get some branding out on their cards. So when they send them to kids, you have the NFL logo on there reminding them, these are NFL cards. The NFL is the league of choice. Please, watch the NFL versus the AFL. Their way to keep relevance, right, or keep their brand on the top. And I like this Joe Namath card in particular because Joe Namath was really the massive shot across the bow of the NFL when they signed him. He was just a player that stood out that year, was going to be one of the next great talents in the league. The Jets owner, Sonny Werblin, signed him for megabucks to get him to play in the AFL versus it would have been the St. Louis Cardinals of the NFL who had the rights to him. So I just think this is where cards can tell fun stories, and when you have them in your collection, you own that little piece of history or culture of that time as well in the 1960s and that battle between the AFL and the NFL. So that's all I have today. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. In my next episode, I do want to do a video response to Steve, Vintage on Vintage, and I also have a nice gift from Ed, Angry Old Man, and I'm going to save that for the next episode. Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll talk again soon.